What if one phone call could destroy everything you've built? What if the most powerful couple in music, Beyoncé and Jay Z, were making those calls to silence someone? And what if that someone decided to go public instead? Hollywood Unlocked's Jason Lee just dropped a bombshell that has the entire entertainment industry holding its breath. He's claiming that Jay Z and Beyoncé have been reaching out to him through intermediaries, trying to control a narrative surrounding their alleged connections to Sean Diddy Combs, who's currently facing some of the most serious legal allegations in entertainment history. But here's where it gets interesting. Jason Lee isn't backing down. In fact, he's doubling down. He's calling Jay Z out publicly, demanding that if Hav wants to talk, he should call directly instead of sending people to do his bidding. And now everyone's asking the same question. Could this actually end up in court? Today we're breaking down everything you need to know about this explosive situation. From the Diddy connection to the legal precedent that could determine whether this is just celebrity gossip or something that could genuinely land in a courtroom. Before we dive into the allegations, we need to understand who Jason Lee is and why his voice carries so much weight in Hollywood. Jason Lee isn't just another gossip blogger throwing rumors around on the internet. He's the founder and CEO of Hollywood Unlocked, a media platform that has become one of the most influential voices in Black celebrity news. Over the years, Lee has built relationships, broken major stories, and positioned himself as someone who operates in that gray area between traditional journalism and entertainment gossip. What makes Lee particularly dangerous, or powerful depending on your perspective, is that he's proven he has access. He's interviewed major celebrities, attended exclusive industry events, and most importantly, he's shown that he's willing to publish stories that mainstream media outlets won't touch. He's been both praised and criticized for his approach, but one thing is undeniable. People in the industry pay attention to what he says. His podcast, The Jason Lee Show, has millions of listeners who tune in specifically to hear him spill tea on what's really happening behind the scenes in Hollywood. And that's exactly where this current controversy began, on his podcast, where Lee made claims that immediately went viral and caught the attention of arguably the most powerful couple in entertainment. But to understand why this matters so much, we need to talk about the elephant in the room: Diddy. Sean Diddy Combs was arrested in September of last year on charges that shook the entertainment world to its core. We're talking about federal charges including sex trafficking, racketeering, and prostitution. These aren't civil lawsuits. These are criminal charges brought by federal prosecutors. Diddy pleaded not guilty and remains in custody at MDC Brooklyn, with his bail requests repeatedly denied. But it didn't stop there. Multiple additional lawsuits have been filed against Diddy, with allegations ranging from sexual assault to drugging victims to issuing death threats. One lawsuit alleges that a 19-year-old woman was raped by Diddy in his hotel room during a 2004 photo shoot, and that he threatened to kill her and her friend if they didn't cooperate. Another complaint alleges that a man was assaulted in a Macy's stockroom in 2008, while Diddy's bodyguards threatened his life. If convicted on all charges, Diddy could face life in prison. Now, here's where it gets complicated for Jay Z and Beyoncé. For years, the three of them ran in the same circles. They attended the same parties, collaborated on business ventures, and were photographed together countless times. In the world of hip-hop royalty, Diddy, Jay Z, and Beyoncé were all part of the same elite tier. As Diddy's legal troubles mounted and more allegations came to light, people started asking questions about everyone in his orbit. Social media erupted with speculation, conspiracy theories, and accusations, and that's when things started getting legally dangerous for everyone involved. To understand the pressure that Jay Z and Beyoncé were already under before Jason Lee entered the picture, we need to talk about what happened with Piers Morgan and Jaguar Wright. Jaguar Wright is a former neo-soul singer who has recently reinvented herself as someone who makes explosive allegations against major figures in the music industry. In early October, she appeared on Piers Morgan's show Uncensored and made serious claims about Jay Z and Beyoncé, suggesting they were involved in keeping on people against their will and putting people on planes while they are unconscious, directly tying them to the allegations against Diddy. What happened next is crucial to understanding the current situation with Jason Lee. Jay Z and Beyoncé's lawyers immediately contacted Piers Morgan's team, calling Wright's claims totally false and demanding they be removed from the interview. Morgan, who rarely backs down from controversy, actually complied. He issued a public on-air apology, had the segment edited out, and explained that while his show is called Uncensored, there are legal limits. Morgan stated, "Their lawyers contacted us to say that those claims were totally false and have no basis in fact, and we've therefore complied with a legal request to cut them from the original interview. Editing interviews is not something we do lightly at a show called Uncensored, but like the proverbial cries of fire in a crowded theater, there are legal limits on us too, and we apologize to Jay Z and Beyonce." This incident proved that Jay Z and Beyonce were willing to use legal threats to protect their reputation and shut down what they considered false allegations. It also showed that even major media personalities like Piers Morgan would back down when faced with potential legal action from the couple's legal team. This sets the stage for what happened next with Jason Lee. On an October episode of his podcast, Jason Lee went public with something most people in his position would have kept quiet. He claimed that Jay Z and Beyonce were having people call him to put out the flames surrounding the couple's relationship with Diddy. But Lee didn't just mention it in passing. He directly addressed Jay Z on his podcast, and his words were pointed and personal. "Jay Z, I know you're watching because you got people calling me. Stop having people call me. You can call me yourself, you know how to get my number. You got people calling me," Lee said during the episode. "Call me yourself because this right here is going to go viral. I will tell you, to the audience, if I do come up missing, all the calls I've been getting have been about him." That last line, "if I do come up missing," immediately caught everyone's attention. It sounded like Lee was suggesting he felt threatened, though he did clarify that he hadn't received any calls threatening him with violence. Lee also revealed something interesting during his rant. He was frustrated that he'd been getting these calls about drama, but hadn't received calls for things like the Rock Nation Brunch, an exclusive annual event that Jay Z hosts. The implication was clear. Jay Z's team would reach out when they needed something from Lee, but would not include him in the elite circles otherwise. But perhaps the most significant part of Lee's statement was what he revealed later. He claimed he had actually stopped a major story about Beyonce from going public. This suggested that Lee had information, potentially damaging information, and had chosen to protect the couple, only to feel disrespected by how they were now treating him. So here's the million-dollar question. Could this actually go to court? To answer that, we need to understand what legal claims would be involved here. The most obvious avenue would be defamation, specifically defamation per se, which is defamation that's so obviously harmful that you don't even need to prove damages. For Jay Z and Beyonce to successfully sue Jason Lee for defamation, they would need to prove several things. First, that Lee made a false statement of fact, not opinion, but fact. Second, that the statement was published or communicated to a third party. Third, that the statement caused harm to their reputation. And fourth, depending on the jurisdiction, that Lee acted with actual malice or at least negligence. Here's where it gets tricky. Jason Lee hasn't actually accused Jay Z and Beyonce of any specific crimes. He's claimed they've been calling him, which they could potentially argue is false, but he hasn't said they're guilty of anything related to Diddy's allegations. That's a crucial distinction. What Lee has done is create an association in the public's mind. By repeatedly mentioning Jay Z and Beyonce in the same breath as Diddy's legal troubles, and by suggesting that they're trying to control his narrative, he's implying something without explicitly stating it. This is a classic gossip blogger technique. You let your audience draw their own conclusions while maintaining plausible deniability. The Piers Morgan situation gives us a blueprint for how Jay Z and Beyonce handle these situations. They use cease and desist letters and threats of legal action to get people to back down. The question is, will that work with Jason Lee? Lee has made it clear that he's not intimidated. He's gone public with the alleged calls, he's stood firm on his claims, and he's actually challenged Jay Z to take further action. So where does this leave us? As of right now, there's no indication that Jay Z and Beyonce have filed any legal action against Jason Lee. The situation remains in this tense standoff where Lee has gone public with his claims, and the couple's team has reportedly been making calls behind the scenes but hasn't escalated to formal legal proceedings. There are a few possible outcomes here. 1. Jay Z and Beyonce could decide that going after Lee publicly would only give him more attention and make the situation worse. Sometimes the best response to gossip is no response at all. 2. They could continue their behind-the-scenes pressure campaign, trying to manage the narrative without creating a legal spectacle. 3. If Lee continues to push or reveals more damaging information, they could decide that legal action is necessary to protect their reputation. What makes this situation so fascinating is that it's not just about two celebrities versus a gossip blogger. It's about power, access, and control of narrative in the social media age. 20 years ago, Jay Z and Beyonce could have squashed this story with a few phone calls to magazine editors and television producers. But in today's media landscape, where someone like Jason Lee can reach millions of people directly through a podcast and social media, that traditional power structure doesn't work the same way. Could this go to court? Legally, yes, it's possible. Jay Z and Beyonce have the resources and the legal team to pursue action if they choose. But the real question is whether they'll decide that a lawsuit would do more harm than good. After all, any legal action would put Lee in the spotlight even more, give him a platform to present whatever information he claims to have, and turn this into a drawn-out public spectacle that keeps their names associated with the Diddy controversy. For now, we're watching a high-stakes game of chess between Hollywood's most powerful couple and one of its most controversial media personalities. Whatever happens next will likely set precedents for how celebrities handle similar situations in the future. One thing's for certain, everyone's watching, everyone's talking, and Jason Lee isn't backing down.